And so we're going to talk about supporting families with fasting. So why do we want to do this? We want to help them make that connection, make that, so sort of turn their hearts toward God. And one way to do that is through the practice of fasting. And fasting really has two parts. There's abstinence and there's fasting. So we sort of lump those into one word to have three easy practices during Lent: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. But fasting has a couple of different levels to it, if you will. Abstinence is completely abstaining, it's doing without. And if you give up chocolate or social media, but replace that with something else that, we're just trading one thing for another, that wouldn't be consistent with the church's teaching about abstinence. Or it may not be as effective for you if that's really the motivation behind it. So we want to make sure that we have the correct motivation when we're either abstaining or fasting. Abstaining is a more intense sort of fasting. So we abstain from meats on Friday during Lent. We do that with a heart that we're trying to connect with Christ's suffering. And this is a little practice, if you will, something small that we can do that can be challenging for folks, and if we replace the meat with fancy fish, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about fancy fish, then is it really leading to any sort of fasting or abstinence? So then moving to fasting, it's just simply doing with less. So, during Fridays during Lent and Ash Wednesday, but consistently during the Fridays during Lent, fasting is to eat one full meal in two smaller meals that equal less than a full meal. So fasting is a little more palatable for us who need nutrition. We need energy to go on. This is fasting, and doesn't mean bread and water necessarily, but we can certainly eat. But the spirit of fasting is that we're offering something up, we're doing without, to make that stronger connection, to turn our hearts toward God especially during this season. You can fast anytime, really, if you want to take that practice on. So what can families do, really, to practice abstinence or fasting? Fasting from TV or going to the movies, but replace them with something spiritual. God bless you. Like spiritual media, such as documentaries on saints. Maybe we're going to not watch one of our favorite television shows or go to see a new release movie, but we can easily find movies on the saints or something that's spiritually connected. So now we're trading something, even though we might still be partaking in this type of media. We're trading something that's possibly purely for entertainment for something that has more meat, if you will, or spiritual value. That's one suggestion. Fasting from eating alone. Fast from eating alone. How many of us or our family members grab our food and go to our place and do, watch TV or whatever it is that we do? How about fasting from that and enforce a mealtime together, a family mealtime? So whether it's once a week or more frequently, we'll talk about when you can do these things after we get through our topics. But the idea would be that we can replace this isolation with more of a community of our family, to have those conversations, just to talk about, maybe you're talking about your successes or challenging regarding prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. You can fast from your normal technology use and replace it with exploring or interacting with something faith-related. So we talked about mindless scrolling a couple of weeks ago, and I think that would be applicable to suggest to families that, hey, you know what? You can use the technology or not. Maybe you just want to take a fast from Facebook or some type of social media or just technology altogether if you can. Or you can consider replacing that with something else. So you're still fasting and the heart and spirit is behind it, and you're actually replacing that with something significant.